The plot introduces us to Captain Frank, engaged in his preferred virtual reality setting, a Civil War simulation. We find him strategically positioned ready to spring an ambush on the enemy. As he collaborates with an ally within the simulation, they decide that it's time to attack. During the fight, Frank encounters a character behaving distinctly from the others, leading him to identify the individual as a spy for the opposing side. Unnerved by this revelation, Frank boldly leads the charge against the enemy. However, the enemy forces were well prepared, swiftly overpowering most of Frank's team. Despite Frank's efforts in eliminating several adversaries, he grows bored with the predictability of the simulation's outcome, and he commands Jean to halt the simulation, freezing the virtual world around him. Wanting insights, Frank inquires Jean about the flaws in his attack strategy. In the simulation, a spy character unexpectedly addresses him by his real name, which is peculiar because Frank uses an alias within the virtual world. This spy confronts Frank with a stark accusation, suggesting that he's deceiving no one, especially not himself, before abruptly terminating Frank's character in the simulation. Emerging unharmed from the virtual encounter, Captain Frank rises from the simulation module, returning to the reality of his spaceship. Puzzled by the incident, he queries Jean, the onboard AI, about how the spy could possibly know his real name. Jean suggests that the occurrence might be a glitch, but this explanation doesn't seem to fully satisfy Frank's curiosity. Continuing with his day, Frank embarks on a routine inspection of his crew, and he first encounters Rika, the ship's botanist, tasked with cultivating plants on board. Rika appears to be grappling with feelings of loneliness and nostalgia for Earth. Next, Frank checks in with Alice and Kenji, a couple who are both astrobiologists. They seem to be enjoying their time aboard the ship, finding comfort in each other's company. Frank's journey through the ship leads him to Val, a geologist, and Manny, an astrophysicist, who often spend their leisure time cooking together and engaging in lighthearted arguments over trivial matters. He also meets with Jimmy, the nuclear physicist and the second-in-command, and Billy, who moderates a reality show. The show, titled Edge of Never, broadcasts the crew mission back to Earth, adding a layer of public essence to their journey. The crew also includes Roger, the reality show's producer, and crew psychologist who's married to Rika, Jules, and the ship's navigator, is known for his love for gambling. Sue, the introvert pilot, keeps her emotions close to the vest. Lastly, there's Adin, the crew's doctor, who plays a crucial role in the risky mission. During Frank's conversation with Adin, a concerning revelation comes to light. Adin is showing early symptoms of Parkinson's, hinting at the potential need for the crew to return to Earth. Meanwhile, a conflict arises involving Manny and Val, who express their frustration to Roger. They were tired of acting out scripted arguments for the reality show, a role that they never agreed to. In a very manipulative move, Roger persuades them to continue, promising assistance with obtaining visas for their families back on Earth, away from the increasingly dangerous coastal areas. This subplot adds a layer of ethical complexity to the mission, revealing the tension between personal agendas and the greater good of the expedition. Tension escalates aboard the Phaeton as the spacecraft approaches Neptune, bringing the crew to a critical point, the go or no-go decision. Aware of the gravity of the situation, Frank calls a meeting to brief the crew. During the assembly, Adin, the crew's doctor, reveals his illness to everyone. This news heightens the crew's anxiety, sparking a flurry of debates and concerns about the mission's future. Frank, asserting his authority, reminds everyone that the final decision lies with him and dismisses the meeting, leaving the crew in a state of uneasy anticipation. Amidst the high-stress environment, Frank engages in a secretive virtual sexual affair with Rika, the ship's botanists, within the realm of the virtual reality module. This affair occurs unbeknownst to her husband Roger. However, their virtual affair takes a startling turn when the mysterious spy from Frank's earlier simulation appears again, abruptly ending Frank's virtual life with a cryptic message, intensifying the mystery surrounding the spy's identity and intentions. Meanwhile, Jimmy, the second-in-command, seeks out Frank to inquire about his decision regarding the mission. Frank, still undecided, assures Jimmy that he'll be the first to know once a decision is made, and the uncertainty surrounding the mission's direction continues to loom over the crew. The following day, Frank and Rika discuss the bizarre occurrence in the virtual world, puzzled by how someone could infiltrate their private modules without an invitation. Tensions further escalate during a dinner, where Sue the pilot accuses Billy and Alice of messing with her virtual reality module, and she goes on to express unexplained glitches within it. The confrontation heats up, leaving Sue isolated and frustrated, heightening the sense of discord amongst the crew. In another twist, Adam experiences a disturbing encounter with his virtual module. As he was immersed in a peaceful drawing session in a virtual landscape, he's unexpectedly pushed by the same elusive spy. This encounter leaves Adam profoundly shaken upon returning to reality. Additionally, Jules struggles with his virtual experiences as the simulation of his son no longer feels authentic to him, and these incidents, along with emerging personality clashes and peculiar happenings, signal a growing unrest within the ship. The narrative reaches a pivotal moment when Captain Frank calls the entire crew to announce his decision regarding their mission. Standing before his team with a sense of resolve, Frank confidently declares that they'll proceed with the mission and that it's a go. The announcement, however, is met with mixed reactions, as Jules is caught off guard by the suddenness of the decision, while Alice expresses her discontent, feeling that the crew should have a say in this crucial decision. Acknowledging the crew's concerns, Frank agrees to Alice's suggestion of a democratic vote, making the decision a collective one. The voting begins with Adam, the doctor, who initially seemed inclined to vote no. However, a transformative experience in the virtual module rejuvenates his enthusiasm for exploration, leading him to vote in favor of continuing the mission. Encouraged by Adam's change of heart, Frank proceeds to canvass the other crew members for their votes, and one by one, each of them expressed support for continuing the journey, except for Roger, who remains skeptical, perceiving the voting process as a mere formality. With the go decision affirmed, the ship sets its course toward Eridani. The narrative continues with a deeply disturbing incident involving Billy, a member of the crew. While engaged in a VR simulation, Billy expresses a traumatic event. The mysterious spy, who's been a recurring figure in the crew's virtual experiences, assaults her within the module. Despite her desperate attempts to halt the simulation by calling out to Jean, the ship's AI, the attack continues, leaving Billy deeply shaken. After exiting the module, Billy seeks out Roger to share her harrowing experience. She expresses her concern for the safety of the other crew members and suggests that the virtual reality program be taken offline until they can resolve the critical issue. The safety of the crew becomes a paramount concern, prompting Roger to approach Captain Frank with a proposition to shut down the virtual reality modules. Frank reminds Roger that he was the one who initially advocated for their decision in the mission, and Roger concedes that point but insists that the safety of the crew takes precedence. After some debate, they agree to leave the decision to the rest of the crew. The crew subsequently divides into two groups over the issue. One group views the incident as a mere technical glitch, arguing that shutting down the module would be an overreaction. The other group believes that a serious safety breach has occurred, warranting the immense cessation of the program. Ultimately, the decision is made not to shut down the virtual reality module, and in the midst of these tensions, Roger confides in his wife Rika about his concerns regarding Frank's increasingly erratic behavior. But the situation aboard the ship rapidly escalates when they face a technical emergency. The communications array fails to deploy correctly, posing a significant threat to their mission. Jules attempts to resolve the problem from within the ship, but soon realizes that an external assessment is necessary. Preparing for an extracurricular activity to fix the array, Frank, Rika, Val, and Manny face an unforeseen catastrophe. As they get ready, the airlock chamber malfunctions, trapping Frank inside without his pressure suit helmet, and in a frantic and desperate attempt to save him, the crew was unable to prevent the airlock from opening. Tragically, Frank is exposed to the vacuum of space, leading to his imminent death. The crew is then left in a state of shock and grief, grappling with the loss of their captain. Frank's death marks a profound turning point in the movie, casting a shadow over the mission and the morale of those left to carry on. Following the tragic events, the atmosphere aboard the Phaeton becomes increasingly tense and suspicious, and Jules, deeply affected by Frank's death, starts to harbor doubts about the incidents, suspecting that it was probably not an accident, but a deliberate act of sabotage or murder. This suspicion shatters the already fragile trust amongst the crew, leaving Jules feeling isolated and unsure of whom to trust. In the wake of Frank's untimely death, Jimmy, the drive engineer and now the second in command, reluctantly steps up to take the lead. Jimmy's aware that his somewhat annoying personality and tendency to work alone might lead to conflicts with the rest of the crew, but he recognized the necessity of maintaining order and progress on the mission. Meanwhile, Roger, deeply immersed in investigating the circumstances of Frank's death, makes a significant discovery. He comes across Frank's final recorded message, a confession of his love for Rika. Rika, dealing with her own grief and the confusion surrounding Frank's death, finds Frank's virtual reality headset in her quarters. She puts on the headset and enters Frank's favorite virtual simulation. Inside the digital world, Rika encounters what seems to be a digital version of Frank. This virtual Frank speaks mysteriously, telling her that nothing she sees is real and urging her to follow him to discover the truth, using metaphors like through the looking glass and down the rabbit hole. As he disappears into the virtual horizon on horseback, Rika is left calling out for him, her voice echoing in the virtual void, symbolizing her emotional distress and the deepening mystery surrounding the events on the ship.